Ever wonder what really happens behind the scenes in construction, real estate, and development? We pull back the curtain on the new home construction industry, the real estate market, and the trends shaping it all. Discover the stories, insights, and expertise behind the process of building a new home. Join us for Trust the Process podcast, and let's build something great together. Welcome back to Trust the Process, the podcast where we talk about the real estate industry, new home construction, and everything in between. I'm Krista, joined again by Michael, and today we wanted to look at some of the things that might shock you about building a new home, things that you may or may not realize, or maybe the sticker shock.
Sticker shock.
Yeah, sticker shock.
High and low sticker shock.
Both ends of it, yes.
Right.
So sticker shock. Didn't know that cost that much, or gosh, I would expect that to cost more. So some of those things that might surprise you. Hopefully we can show you some things you didn't know.
Let's do 3 on the high side and 3 on the low side. This is apropos to what I've been doing the last probably 3 or 4 days. I've been going through every project that are near completion, and just this is landing way higher. One project in the northwest part of town that's way over budget and just a disaster of a spreadsheet. And the comps aren't there to support. It's going to be a challenge.
It's a beautiful house, though. It might be a disaster of a spreadsheet, but it's
a disaster of a spreadsheet.
Disaster of a home.
Yeah, that's probably why it's a beautiful home, because
yes.
I built it as if it would be a $2 million or $2.2 million home, and it's just a small version of a $2.2 million home. Mm-hmm. So can that area support a $900,000 value? I don't know. We're going to find out together, and we'll have to kind of maybe check in on that after. So I like to look at things as a percentage of the value of the home, not the value of the entire, or the cost of the entire project. I look at it as, I'm basically creating, let's take a house in South Shore, like Las Vegas, we're creating a $2 million home. So then this line item is what percentage of that end of day. And I kind of took that and said, okay, what percentage would shock people to say, I'm building a $2 million home, but this big thing only cost 2% of the entire budget? Holy cow, I thought it'd be way more than that.
Yeah.
Conversely, oh my God, this thing that I didn't even know was a cost center is 10% of the budget. Holy cow, that's just insane. Yeah. So I don't have an example that egregious where something you didn't even know was a line item is that high of a percentage, but I want to start with the bad news first. Okay. So things that still give me sticker shock to this day, and I know would give a newbie or a person building their own custom home sticker shock, would be the design and engineering. You just don't realize, we've kind of talked about this in the past, but you just don't realize how much the architect, the mechanical engineer, the electrical and plumbing, the structural, the calcs, the truss design, all those things that kind of come in to play before you even move your first speck of dirt. And then ongoing inspections after that, third-party QAA as we call it. So we might have to have our soil inspected after we excavate and we recompact. Those are called lifts. We have to have a boring sample done, and all the front-end work before you break ground. So just when you consider all of that, when you factor in everything that is not related to actually building the house but is related to the design and engineering and quality of the home, it ends up being on the order of, on an average $2 million home, and it ends up being on the order of around $75,000. So that quick math, that's around 4% of the end of day sales price of the home goes to the paper that the home is designed on. It goes to the third party.
And nothing tangible that at the end of the process anybody could say, and here's my,
right.
There
and
isn't anything to,
right. And every jurisdiction has different requirements. Some jurisdictions have a requirement that if it's under 3,000 square feet, it doesn't need a structural engineer. You can follow standard details. Not every city has these requirements. Some cities, novel concept, let your professional electrician lay out and volt out your home to say, okay, the load calcs are this and this for this. Do we really need to spend, no offense to Mariano Engineering, do we need to spend $6,000 to $7,000 calcing that house out when we don't even follow the plans anyway? We don't follow the plans anyway. We don't follow exactly every single outlet. We add a lot of things. We do a framing walk, even on a home that's not sold. I do a framing walk with the electrician to say, add a box here, add this here, do this. Let's upgrade it in the box here, add this here, do this. Let's upgrade it in this way. So
and
we
they're
don't
just
follow
things
it
that
anyway.
you can't know until you're standing in the home. We
Yeah.
talked about that last time. You can't
Gallery
feel
lighting.
where lighting should be until you're actually in the
Right.
flow. It's different on paper.
It is.
Sometimes.
And a lot of times our engineer just kind of plots it out. Okay, 4 can lights in every room, and they just kind of figure it all out.
Slightly over to be right above the sink.
Yeah,
or,
just
you
a
know
little,
what I mean?
yeah,
There's just-
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So those are things that still surprise me. And no matter how much replication we try to do with our standard floor plans, there's still a cost. Even replotting a home and changing the title block and changing the address and showing how it sits on that particular site, it's still a $15,000. By the time it's all said and done, to add up another $5,000 for quality assurance engineering for the actual site-specific conditions, you're at $20,000 on a plan that we've built 6 times. It just, to me, that's sticker shock.
Yeah.
Topic of the conversation.
Yeah.
Whether we could do an entire episode on arguing whether or not we should be doing those things
Right.
or whether or not those things are needed. I do find it interesting that not every jurisdiction requires it. So why do some and not others? I can't find a reasoning behind that. You know, we have something on certain permits, standard details. So you don't have to get a soils test to do an in-ground pool. You don't have to do a soils test for a wall, especially a fence. I mean, if you want to do a retaining wall, there are standard details though for Nevada soil. So I just find that interesting that we don't have that for a home, and why that's so cost prohibitive to do it that way. So that's sticker shock
So
number
that's
one. for
sticker
me.
shock
That's
number
sticker
one.
shock
So that
number
would
one,
kind of be the design and engineering piece of it.
yeah, I kind of lump those together. A lot of the third-party stuff are engineering firms, so they're going to come out and do the sample, the soil, and make sure
Yep.
you're compacting. So since it goes to a company that has engineering in the name, I call it
Yeah.
engineering. So that's sticker shock number one.
At what number again?
Around
Sticker shock number one
4%.
At 4%. Okay.
It's around 4%. That number changes as you get a bigger home. It might start to dwindle or diminish. So a topic we talked about a couple weeks ago was why it's so much riskier to build entry-level housing, because
Right.
that design and engineering becomes 10% of it. If you're trying to build something for
Good point.
450,000, what firms how are you going to get all your engineering done
Yeah.
inside 45? You can, but it's just challenging. You have to start replicating and then getting those costs down on each individual home. You're still going to have probably $10,000 on each individual home. It's still a big line item. So you only get that percentage down on an entry-level home by replication. That's why there's not many unique entry-level homes. When you drive through neighborhoods that are entry-level or mid-market, there's
Sure.
a lot of replication. That's just, you could not have that kind of money spent on a $500,000 home.
Has to be a simple
have to,
shape. Has to be a
right.
simple floor
Simple
plan.
shape
has
and
to be
replication
The pad
and-
has to
right.
be poured in a simple square,
Exactly.
rectangular
right.
shape.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
Okay, so that's
Yep.
4%. What else would you shock us with?
I would say permitting to me is a shock, not in terms of a percentage, but just how much a building permit and impact fees and plan check fees can add up for the average home. They go off of size and fixture count and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's going to be hard to get a permit and all the accessory fees done for under $15,000. So nothing less than probably 7, and maybe nothing more than around 20. But to me, that is a lot of money.
That changes per home?
It
Or is that
changes-
just as a standard?
It changes
typically?
in terms of the fixture count. It changes in terms of the size, but it's incremental. A standard permit has X number of dollars. A plan check fee is usually always,
Okay.
let's say, $1,500. It's just the raw cost of it. All those jurisdiction-related fees that don't really go anywhere, they don't go into the home. It's just the city allowing you to build. Now, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole of trashing the fees, because I do know that that's a big revenue source for cities that are growing, and it represents the fact that the city is growing, therefore our maintenance costs are going to be higher, and I understand there's a calculus that goes into that. And those permit fees pay for your inspections. So if you're spending, let's say on a $2 million, 4,000 square foot home, a permit with a plan check and everything is impact fees usually around $15,000. So yeah, not a huge percentage of the budget, not even, or of the end of the day value of the home, maybe about 0.75%. But to me, that just seems like a strikingly big number.
Yeah.
And anyone I've worked with on the build to suit side, if I've had a client that came to me to build them a home, the permit just shocked them. They just weren't prepared
Yeah.
that a permit would cost that much money.
And it's a
So-
good point, because kind of what do you get for that,
You-
right? I mean, you get permission to build.
You get permission
but
to build.
you also get the inspections.
You get
so
the
there
inspections.
is a labor, there is a that you're
Cost
paying
to the
for.
city. There's in our jurisdiction, there's about $1,500 worth of plan check. So I get that they're kind of auditing the plans for code. So, and then the city inspector is auditing the build to the plans. It just kind of cascades down. That being said, the amount of deviation away from the plans and the amount of things that are either not caught in plan check or called out as simple labeling conventions is astounding, kind of like a job justification. It feels like, I have to find something in this plan because I have to justify the fact that I'm getting $1,500 per plan to audit set plans for code. And if you're right. So I do think that there's a lot of kind of overlap there that might be unnecessary. But if they don't have a value add, then it's harder to justify those fees without calling them just flat out impact fees. I mean, they could just do that and just say it's $10,000 impact fee because you're adding a rooftop to our city. I'm not going to mention that they get to tax it forever.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
They're getting a tax on it, but it's okay.
Double
dipping a little bit. But we've created a model of growth that really throws a lot of the weight on the individual cities and counties to maintain those roads and the thoroughfares and the schools, and there's a lot of strain that comes in. It's a city and a jurisdiction is a business too. So I give them grace on that, but to me it's a sticker shock. So I'm not advocating that it be lower, but it's. And then there's also the cost of just running the building department, which a department that I love so much. Sit around and add new codes, right? And I know we need it. Okay.
Yeah.
But so that's one.
Okay. Then, so that's two. What would be the third?
I kind of saved the best for last. I sandwich permitting in the middle.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that would probably shock a lot of home buyers or build to suit clients to say, oh, that seems more. I just picked either the highest percentage or the most surprising. So the third one is exteriors. Not the exterior of the house, but the exterior. Now, we have a bit of a skewed lens because we build custom homes, completely move-in ready. 99% of our builds have pools and spas and outdoor kitchens and fully landscaped backyards, and we obviously fence everything and build stucco block walls and cap them and build view fencing, and we develop the entire lot. So my lens is a little skewed on that, but I've done other projects where we haven't, and the exterior spend is always higher than you expect. So on one of our customs that sells for around $2 million, if it has a pool, and most do, 10% or more of my budget is just the outside. The driveway, the back patio pavers, the pool, the spa.
10%.
10%. So we're around $215,000 on a $2 million home for the outside.
Yeah.
The fence, the landscape.
Right.
Hardscape. And pool.
And a pool.
So we're spending in our costs. We build pools at our own cost, and we're spending around $90,000 just in hard costs: equipment, excavation, gunite. I mean, we upgrade a lot of things. They're all smart pools and telecenter, run by your phone. But even if I were to trim it down to bare bones, I'd still be spending in the 70s, probably 71, 72, probably around, I would say, around $75,000.
I don't think you could put a pool in anymore for under 70, and that's just a basic hole in the ground.
That's exactly. There's things you could cut. You could not heat it, and you could probably get those numbers down, but it just seems like once you move your shovel, just figure $70,000 and then go up from there. So, and that's our cost. That's not a company being greedy. That's us paying the excavator, us paying the rebar people, us paying the pool plumbers directly. So those are our costs. I'm talking about pulling back the curtain. I mean, that shows you. Those are our true costs. That's what we're spending on a pool. And 10 years ago, companies were retailing pools for $40,000.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. And there is a recession in the pool building industry. So I don't know if some of those costs might come down.
I don't know, but you talk to pool companies anymore, and gosh, it's a little slow. Business isn't what it used to be. Kind of thing. And this is Las Vegas. Everybody wants a pool, so can't imagine that there isn't a desire. Maybe not a demand in terms of people that can afford it, but there's a desire for it.
They kind of price themselves out of the market for a lot of it. Yeah, it's not a depression, but it's definitely a pool recession. So it's been good for us. We're able to schedule our people. It's much better. It's much easier to keep a pool going. Our in-house person who manages it all, I know she can get a pool done in about 8 weeks, which is crazy. So we kind of line it up with the last 12 weeks of construction of the home. We kind of work backwards from there, so we don't have too much, number one, cost outlay.
Right, and
number
people
two,
aren't on top of each other
exactly.
as they're working.
We want the outside done, ideally as much as possible, and then as we're finishing the inside, we're getting the pool going.
Exactly, because you can imagine if the scaffolding were up for the stucco or the exterior, and you've got a pool,
it's a challenge
back there, or somebody trying to dig a hole.
Right.
Have to manage those things in a way that
right.
lines up.
Yeah, get the outside done.
Yeah.
So,
okay, so those are the top 3. So quick wrap up. The design and engineering, the permitting and fees and impact fees, and then the outside, the hardscape and landscape on the exterior. So.
And even a basic, we have a 6-home project coming that I have no intention of building out the backyards, and just the driveways and the back patio still will have pavers. I just won't do anything beyond the end of the back patio. But by code, I have to have landscape plan for the city, for the front. So, I mean, we have to budget. I'd still probably spend around $40,000 to $50,000 for all the hardscape and landscape. And that's just a house with a basic front yard and the driveway and the back patio done in pavers. Yeah.
You don't think about that driveway, but it's an expense. Even
It's
whether
an
you do
expense.
paver or whether you do a concrete slab, either way.
Either way, and driveways are big. They're covering a lot of space.
Sure.
I mean, it's always a minimum of a 500 square foot driveway, but most of our homes have 3-car garages, so we're more, and then we set them back from the street a little bit. We're usually 1,000 to 1,200 in total between the little back covered patio that will have pavers, this front sidewalk, and the driveway. And pavers are $8 to $10 per square with the product and the labor and all the accessory.
So you multiply that by
so $10,000 to $12,000, and then that's just a driveway sitting in the middle of dirt leading to your house. So it's just a lot of it's just a big cost. So when you're starting that as your basis, and then you got to figure out all the irrigation and everything on all the plants and the ground cover, it adds up. So you pull up, and that's what $40,000 bought me. Okay, when I pull up, how about $2 million? It's $215,000, and I got a driveway and some trees and some. Okay, so it's just sticker shock.
Okay. So those are the ones that would shock us in terms of the high prices. What about the other end of it? Where would you drop down and maybe let us see that there isn't as big an expense as you might originally imagine?
Some of these are actually bigger line items than the first 3, but they're such integral parts of the house, you would expect them to be higher. So I consider it reverse sticker shock. Oh, that's really... Oh, I still spent 1.7 in build cost, but the lumber was only X number of dollars. So that leads me to the first one, is lumber. And lumber is a hot button, and lumber is the skeleton of the house. And I get it. People feel like, oh, it's going to be a huge dollar amount. But a lumber package, assuming kind of average lumber prices of $300 to $400 per 1,000 board feet, which is kind of where they hover on average. We have spikes and up and down, but for the most part, that's where they're at. So with lumber prices around that price point, it's a lumber package on a 4,000 square foot home might be around $50,000 to about $10 a square foot on a home that will sell for $500 to $600 a square foot. So we're talking. That's a shock. Yeah. It's around, quick math, 2% of the end of day value. 1/50th of the value of the home is lumber. It feels like it'd be to me. It feels like it'd be 10%. I mean, I'm a seasoned builder, and I still feel like, oh wow, that was only $50,000, including.
We had that come up in another issue, and that you mentioned the cost, and we got a lot of feedback out of people like, what?
Yeah.
So it is a shock that it's as low as it is.
Right, you would think, oh, framing and lumber, that must just be a huge, and it really isn't. With how far you can get on 10% of the budget, you can be walking through a house, the slab is done, everything, you get really far in. And then the expensive stuff starts. So, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of 30,000 here, 40,000 truss packages are around 25,000 for a 4,000 square foot 2-story home. By the time you buy the floor trusses and the roof trusses, so that's a small footprint, relatively small for how much square footage you're getting.
Yeah.
And you're spending around 25,000. So.
And that doesn't factor into your lumber costs. I mean, they are both
it's both wood. The wood. I mean, I break them out differently, but you could argue that it should be. So even if you were to add in trusses, let's take our Brielle floor plan, which is a 3,800 square foot 2-story. Lumber package is around $43,000, so around $10 a square. The truss package was $25,000, so we're at around $70,000 for all the lumber and trusses, and that includes specialty lumber, glue lam beams, LVLs, everything that would go into all the hardware, the tie downs, the straps, everything. Truss plates.
Compare that to the landscape that we just talked
That's
about.
what
That's the whole house.
That's
and the stability and the function of
everything.
the living
The
quarters.
landscape might die next year. You might take it out and say,
that's
"Oh, I don't
true.
like these magnolias. I'm going to take them out."
But relative perspective,
right?
that is a lower.
When you're not even at 10% of the end of day sales price, ideally. So I just find that interesting every time I look at a budget. Yet I still spend over $1 million. Like, oh, this is good. Our lumber and framing and everything's like $130,000. This is great. We're going to be so under budget when we never are.
under budget.
Never.
I've
known that. That's not my
sure
vocabulary.
That's a thing. Yeah. What else is lower than you think we might expect?
To me, windows and exterior compound sliding doors.
Okay.
If we do a low E, really high quality vinyl window, which is one of the most affordable windows you can get. So granted that it's not the most high-end window, but it's a really great window and it works really well and it will last for a really long time. It rarely discolors. It's just a good product. Let's go back to that Brielle floor plan.
Okay.
That house has 4 huge sliders. Huge sliders, and 24 windows. And that entire package was $23,500 with install. To me, that seems really cheap, because when you walk through a home that doesn't have windows in it yet, and then you come back and visit a week later and all the windows are in, it feels like a different house. It just feels like a home. Yeah. And to me, that's always surprising. Now, for reference, if we were to go to a bronze thermally broken aluminum window and slider, those can get up there. But even if we took this to the tippy top, most high-end window, I still would not spend more than $80,000. For the highest end window.
For 20 plus windows and those
20 plus windows and 4 huge sliders. To me, that just seems...
It does, yeah.
Right. And then as a developer, we make decisions on how to spec homes for those reasons. Okay, what kind of lot does this have? What kind of end of day sales price? Can I cut a little bit here? The end of day buyer, I will tell you that I've never had a buyer dismiss a home based on the windows, as far as I've known. That is never a deciding factor. So I will do it, and we've upgraded some of our specs in like Las Vegas with better doors and windows, just because I feel that the home and the lot deserves it. And then if I upgrade a couple other things, then maybe that buyer that's shopping me against another builder on the other side of the lake might come in and say, oh, their Toll Brothers is doing black aluminum and you're at 2.4 and they're at 2.2, and so you just do things because you don't want to not do it because you've overspec'd the home in other aspects. But it's one of the last things that I upgrade. I mean, to pull back the curtain, but it's one of the last things I upgrade because I know from experience that it does not move the needle in sales price. So given the option, many buyers will elect to upgrade it with us. And they at least want it on the high touch point sliders. They'll want those upgraded to thermally broken. Sometimes we'll mix and match. Rarely do you touch your windows. I don't touch them. You just don't really open them. It's just they're not a high touch point. So, but buyers will choose to upgrade them, but never dismiss a spec home that already has.
And the whole point to a window is that you're looking through it. So you're not looking at it.
Right.
You're kind of,
that's a good point. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So
that's
if
the
it
last
isn't
thing
the
you
highest
notice.
level upgrade, do you notice that? It's still a beautiful glass scene outside. So,
right. And then the outside, I mean, I look for those things, but I would never not buy a home because of its window type.
I look at those things too.
Yeah.
But I don't think
we also have a podcast about home building.
So yes, we do pay attention to those details, but I don't know that the average buyer would.
I don't think. It's definitely not a decision maker.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, so that's 2.
So the third one, I would say, again, in relation, this is a huge line item, and this is really hard to track, but it's labor. So it's hard to track because if I hire a sub, the windows, for instance.
Okay.
How much of that $23,500 is labor? Probably around $6,000, maybe not even that much. So I roughly know how much those things cost. If my HVAC ductwork and the condensers and everything's around $38,000, I know that around probably $8,000 of that was labor. So on a home that might cost around $300 a square to build, with an end of day value of around $500 per square foot, your labor is probably only $100 a square. And that is generous, actually. Really? Yeah. So, because labor is less than half of the total cost of construction costs, and about 20% of the end of day value of the home. And I find that alarming, or sticker,
it wouldn't come
reverse
together
sticker
if
shock.
it weren't for the labor.
Right. And when you walk one of our sites, sometimes you'll see 15 to 20 guys. They're working with all their equipment and all their knowledge and their work ethic. And sometimes it's July and it's 115 in Las Vegas and they're still there working. Sometimes our roofs tend to land in June and July.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You're going to be putting this
You'll
roof
be
tile
up there,
on in August.
And we've got, you go into a house sometimes, and it feels almost like a beehive. It's just bustling.
It's a beehive.
Everybody's everywhere, and people are coming and going, and everybody's got their job, their mission, their point, and they're all working in unison, but individual. It is mind blowing.
It's mind blowing.
How much can be happening in one time?
How much can be happening? How many man hours? They generally say an average home is generates 3 full-time jobs in the for the economy. So if you just were to say what's a full-time jobs, are up 2,200 hours a year. So that's about 6,600 man hours that goes into the average home. And if our homes are twice the average,
right,
we probably have about 12,000 man hours in a home. And to think that that's only 20% of the end of the sales price, to me, is just crazy. That's wild. Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what about the pretty stuff inside, the surfaces, the flooring,
in terms of sticker shock?
Where do those fall? Are those higher than you'd expect, or are they right where you might imagine it to be?
I think that's why I didn't include them, because I feel that they're generally, if you're interested in home building or considering building your own home, or you're a homeowner, or you are interested in even renovation, those are really transparent things to get the pricing on. Appliances, very transparent. You can go on to Madison's a great appliance vendor, Appliance by Design. You can go to these places and see, okay, this high-end range is $19,000. So we know it. Yeah, that sticker shocks me to have a $19,000 range, but it's a knowable, and you expect it to, I'm not saying you expect it to cost as much as a car, but you know it's not cheap. So that's why I didn't include it. But the pretty stuff to me is, in my opinion, I think I've become so numb to it. Maybe I should be surprised that we can spend $80,000 to $100,000 in a cabinet package for an entire house, but that doesn't shock me because
it shocks me a little.
Don't get me wrong. To me, it's not top 3.
And
but
I know the cost, but it's every time I'm like, really?
It is astounding. So we had a house that cabinets are thought of in boxes. You break them into a box, even if it's a whole bank of cabinets. It's how many boxes made up that bank of cabinets. We had a house that's just not finishing. That when I really broke it down, this one did sticker shock me. It was $1,200 per box. Because it was 49 boxes and it was a $62,000 cabinet package. So it worked out to be $1,200. A troll in the comment section is going to do that. It's actually $1,134. Okay. Get a life. Go start a cabinet company and make yourself useful.
Yeah, go get busy.
Go get busy. So yes, when I really broke it down, and you walk through the house and think, really, that box was $1,200, and that's an average. Some boxes are more expensive than others, but at the end of the day, when you have a data set of 49, that's a pretty big data set. So the average is pretty reliable, in my opinion. So so I would say among the pretty stuff, I think cabinets carry really high sticker shock. In a luxury home, to me, appliances always carry a really high sticker shock in terms of the pretty stuff. I mean, there are Thermador refrigerators that are $18,000.
I know.
I mean, it's just.
I know. I've been shopping them for my own home. Or I was, when I was shopping them for my own home, I was like, gosh, I know what these cost. I sell them. I see them. I share them with people. I help people choose them for their home. But when it's your dollar, well,
it really is when you add it up.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I haven't had a home that sold for north of $2 million that didn't have at least $30,000 worth of appliances in it. Because where do you stop? We should probably have an ice maker, under-counter ice maker that's plumbed in, and we should probably have fridge columns, and we should probably make them panel ready and do the cabinet panels. And
the nicer you make those fridge columns, now this has to match, and now that has to go, and this has, you kind of, do you want to keep the same brand, and then you're
right. That's right. And before you know it, you've spent $40,000 to $50,000. The most I've ever spent was $70,000
on an appliance package.
An appliance package for a $3 million home.
But that home warranted it.
It did, 100%.
Had to.
It did, 100%.
You had to.
And that end of day buyer actually noted the high-end appliance package that tipped him over from buying a home that
and it was good. It was really
it was
great. So I've shared it over time. It was a fun
package.
one. Yeah.
But he cited that the home he was shopping us against was a resale. So we had point there. We were in guard gated. This one wasn't. We were custom and new construction. Obviously, that one wasn't. And then the fourth point was the appliance package. And he was an amateur chef, the retired guy that had taken an interest in culinary arts. after in his
Love
retirement.
it. That's perfect then.
Obviously didn't need to do it for the money.
Right.
Buy it for $3 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You already had it.
Yeah.
But
So,
well, good.
those
That's
are
fun.
them. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you breaking that down for
Yeah.
us. It's just interesting. You know what is in the home when you walk through it at the end of the day, or if you go see a model, but you sometimes don't think about the cost that's associated with each of them, how it lays out, and maybe it's more or less. And so thanks for pointing those out for
of
us.
course.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
Learned
for
some
listening.
good stuff. Yes. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you again next time on another episode of Trust the Process podcast. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Trust the Process podcast. Make sure to follow us on Spotify to stay in the loop with the latest insights, project updates, and everything in between. See you next time.